Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk is a monumental achievement of filmmaking. I've written about the film for Shrink Tank, lavishing it with praise. Dunkirk even made my list of the greatest films of this century. Be sure to check out that list. It's also on Shrink Tank. Welcome to Psych Cinema, Shrink Tank's video series where I break down the psychological aspects of the films I watch and love. I'm Jonathan Hedderly, I'm a licensed counselor, and today we're going to discuss my favorite film so far of 2017. Today, I want to talk about some of the psychological aspects of the film Dunkirk. Specifically, I'd like to talk about two primary themes in the film that really drive most of the psychological tension of Dunkirk. Those two themes are, one, the futility of war, and even the futility of escape. And number two, how fear and the threat of death can even be scarier than violence itself. So first, let's talk about the futility of war and of escape. And part of that futility is even just how small and insignificant people can be. The structure of the film is broken down into three timelines and three separate narratives. One section focuses on the beach, another on sea, and a third one in the air. And in each time, especially on the sea, you see a young soldier played by Fionn Whitehead just trying throughout the entire film to catch a lift on a boat back to England. But over and over again, through circumstances and attacks and just bad luck, he's plunged back to Dunkirk. He's homeward bound, and then he finds himself flung back to start all over again. So Dunkirk, as the film, it really isn't focused so much about victory or battles or war. It's really about survival and endurance and never giving up. And even part of that futility, again, it looks at how these characters are just small and insignificant. We really don't learn a lot about these characters because the storyline is more focused on the overall machinery of survival and escape and retreat. Here, a soldier is just one of 1,000 or 400,000 to be exact, soldiers at sea trying to get back, because war really doesn't care about an individual. They're seen as relatively small, powerless when faced with the larger machinery of war, of battle, and the randomness of violence and death. Now let's look at the second theme, the idea of fear and threat and how that can be even more scarier than violence. Now, other than a few scenes of pilots or out at sea, we really don't ever see the enemy. And that's because Dunkirk is really more about the tension, about the never-ending threat of attack, of violence, of death. So as a viewer, we're even immersed in this and we feel the physical and auditory distress throughout this entire film. And it builds and builds to the point where we even ask ourselves, what will people do in order to survive? With this threat, whose life is worth more? Constantly at risk. Whose lives do you risk in order to save others? And what lives are worth more? Are civilians worth more? Are the military? Are the French, the English? Officers or pilots? Now, history tells us that this was considered a military success in rescue, but unless we forget, over 40,000 French troops were taken into captivity, and tens of thousands died in the Blitzkrieg leading up to this. Because in the end, Dunkirk is about experiencing the fear, the dread, and the tension. And this film is designed for us, the audience, to feel overwhelmed and to not have moments of relief throughout the film up until its end. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Psych Cinema. Be sure to subscribe and comment below, or you can provide a recommendation for a film that you'd like for me to cover on Psych Cinema. Visit shrinktank.com for videos, articles, and podcasts that explore pop culture through a psychological lens.